Our first speaker just moved to Wilmington earlier this year. Diane Durance became the director of UNCW Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship in June. Diane brought with her a wealth of experience in not only running similar entrepreneurial organizations in Michigan, but she has also owned and operated several businesses herself. In her limited time here, Diane has already made great strides in helping pull together the numerous assets our region has for small growing businesses, as well as raising our sights for what entrepreneurship can become in our region. Please join me in welcoming Diane to the stage.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you about startup communities, in part because I'm very excited about what we have going on with our startups here in Wilmington. The term startup community was popularized by Brad Feld, who was very instrumental in bringing forward Boulder, Colorado as a hub of entrepreneurial activity and startups. So before we get into talking about the community of startups, I want to define what a startup is, because there's a lot of confusion around entrepreneurship and small business and startups. And for this purpose, what I want to do is be sure you understand what we're talking about when we talk about a startup community. So startups tend to be scrappy young ventures. Very few startups are 10 years old. Most are 5 years old or younger. And what they're doing is they are solving problems that don't have obvious solutions, and they're working on innovations that may not be successful. They also tend to have the promise of tremendous growth, so there's an excitement around the business when it's a startup. The other thing is that startups are companies that are unconstrained by geography, and I want to take a closer look at that. Companies that are designed to scale very quickly and are unconstrained by geography. So when you look at some of these companies that you see the logos here, and I'm sure many of these are familiar to you, you're looking at companies that can continue to grow because they are providing services and products to businesses outside of our community. Now, an example of a local sector business might be something like your local dry cleaners. It's very constrained by how many people need dry cleaning in that area, in that neighborhood. So why is it important to look at startups that have this kind of demographic? Well, it's because they are part of our traded sector economy. And those jobs are what brings in the revenue from other parts of the world and bring it here to Wilmington, where jobs are created here, and those jobs are the jobs that have a multiplier effect. So if you look at, not all startups are high tech, many of them are, and that's what we typically think about as the high tech startups, but it's really, they're not all high tech, but the high tech jobs have a multiplier of 4.3. So that means as we bring in business into our community by doing these services for companies around the country and around the world, the people that are hired by these startup companies in these jobs then create the need for more doctors and lawyers and dry cleaners and retail and restaurants and so forth, which creates opportunity for all of us, whether we're local business or we're in the traded sector. Also, startups tend to create jobs that are higher wage jobs, 47% higher. And they're more resilient in economic downturn because they're not just dependent on what is happening here in our community. So the other thing is that they tend to be those STEM jobs, and jobs in technology and engineering and math and so forth in the sciences are outpacing job creation 27-1. So these are important jobs for us to be cultivating and creating in our community. Here's a typical map of what we see with where are the startup hubs. Where is this exciting startup activity happening? And for many years now, for more than a generation, we've seen startups clustering on the East Coast and West Coast. We have our own Raleigh, North Carolina, makes the list almost every time, which is really exciting. But how do they become a startup center? How does a community develop into a place where innovation and entrepreneurship happens? Well, Brad Feld in his book had 4 attributes that he came to realize after participating in Boulder. So the first is that entrepreneurs must lead, and that leaders in the community must take a long-term view. The community needs to be inclusive of everyone that wants to participate, and there need to be continual activities that bring people together, sharing ideas, connecting, building relationships, and so forth. So Brad had the advantage of being able to reverse engineer what happened in Boulder, because he could look back and say, how did we make this happen? We're in the early stages of creating a startup community here in Wilmington, so I'm going to add 2 other things that I think we need to continue to do, that we are doing, but we can build on. And one is to play to our strengths. We have area expertise. We have strong industries here. We're strong in ed tech, in contract research, and marine science, marine biotech, and those are things we need to continue to build on. The other thing is we need to push our message out. We need to let people know what we're doing here and what our strengths are, so that we attract more talent and more thought leaders in those fields to Wilmington. So how are we doing? I think we're doing very well. I'm very excited to be here and to find out so much is happening, and I can't take much credit for it because, as Rob said, I've only been here 5 months, and there are things happening. We have entrepreneurs that are truly taking the lead in our community, and they are getting out there. They're visible to our entrepreneurs. They're mentoring. They understand the traded sector economy. They have those kinds of relationships. They're helping our startups make those connections. So that's very exciting. We have many organizations, and not everyone is listed on my slide. It was getting pretty jam-packed. But we have a community that understands it's going to take time. It takes a generation or longer to build up a startup community. That's because you need time for startups to get going, to get traction, to be successful, to create jobs, to have exits for those founders, to get back out there, start another company, for young people to participate in some of the growth companies and get ideas of their own and go out and start their own businesses. So that takes iterations and time, and when you have to weather the economic up and down that happens over the course of 20, 30 years to grow it. And I want to also acknowledge that on this slide, although I've represented some of the organizations that are working hard and a few of the individuals, I want to also say we have such a great service provider and professional services community. We have banks, and we have attorneys, and we have CPAs and consultants that are taking the long-term view, and they're investing and volunteering their time to work with our startups. We need to engage the entire ecosystem. Another thing that we are really coming on strong with is connecting the dots and really bringing people together. We just had in November Cucaloris Connect, fabulous opportunity for hundreds of people to connect at dozens of different events during that week. We have many other of the activities that Brad Feld talks about with competitions. He pointed to the need for tangible and focused activities, and some of those we've been doing more and more of, things like startup weekends and hackathons and business accelerators and meetups. So those things are happening as well. And we are getting the word out, but we need to do more of that, and we need to be sure that people understand what we're doing, what our strengths are, what the opportunities are here, and and really build on those things. And I'd be remiss if I didn't do my 30-second commercial on the university. Almost every startup hub has a university that has impact on what is going on in the startup community. And universities bring 5 resources to the table. We have the students, and the students bring the energy and the new ideas and the long-term view. They want to do things here, they want to stay here, they want to grow businesses here. We have professors that are starting businesses. We have professors that are mentoring and helping student teams. We have research labs and libraries and other facilities. We have entrepreneurship programs. We have our technology transfer office, which is OIC at UNCW. So we're playing our role as well. So Wilmington is growing, a great startup community. We're in the early stages, but we have all the essential elements that we're pulling together. And I want to mention two other things really quickly. One is that your entrepreneurial service provider organizations have come together, and we are producing a comprehensive calendar, a monthly calendar of all the entrepreneurial activities and opportunities that are happening, and the Business Journal is supporting us in doing that so that we can get more word out, we can engage more people, and it will be more visible to you what is happening and what the opportunities are to engage. The other thing we're doing, which you'll hear more about in January, is we are working through our Innovate SENC grant committee to pull together opportunities for our entrepreneurs to connect nationally and globally in the fields where we have strengths. So when I'm asked, do we have a startup community? Yes, we do, and it is growing and it is fabulous, and you are all welcome to participate in it. Thank you.